What's up guys, a quick reactive video today. Ableton just got an amazing update to Live 12. It's currently in the beta program, but will be quickly coming to all users in the next couple of weeks, I imagine. I haven't been very excited about Live 12 since it's moved from Live 11, just because I haven't seen the types of leaps that I expected in such a big and expensive update. But I think Ableton are finally pushing it over the line, and I'm very excited about the DAW now. So I wanted to go into some of the details on the 6 biggest updates that they've just rolled out in 12.1. Let's dive into it with probably the most exciting update. We now finally have an auto-tune. It's about time, right? Logic already had an auto-tune built in. Most DAWs do. We've now got it in Ableton. I think it's super powerful and super exciting. I've got this vocal here without the auto shift. Sounds like this.
And when you're back, said I leave.
Great vocal there. Turning on the auto shift, we have strength and everything you would expect in an auto tune. How much of an effect is this auto shift going to create, and how fast or smooth do we want the vocal to be? If we set it to 0.0, we're going to get that T-Pain vocal. We just need to turn on this scale option, which sets it to the scale at the top of the screen, which is B minor.
And when you're back, said I leave.
If we start to smooth out that vocal, of course, it's going to be a less harsh change between notes. I'm going to set my scale to C major, and you can see how that affects the vocal.
And when you're back, said I leave. I hear you begging me to stay.
The really cool thing about this is that we can also have it be affected by MIDI. We just select MIDI in and choose MIDI on. And then I'm going to select my second MIDI track here. And I'll just play some chords in after selecting poly, meaning that we can play multiple notes that will affect this vocal.
When you're back, said I leave. I hear you begging me to stay.
But that's not all. We have live mode here, which is really helpful for those performers that want to use the auto-tune in a live gig scenario. Selecting this option means that it's going to prioritize reduced latency in the auto-tune whilst you're using it, which is of course super beneficial. We also have this LFO panel, which means you can have effect of that vocal through low frequency oscillation as well. If we affect that pitch by 12 semitones.
And when you're back, said I leave.
Obviously, if we use that in a more subtle setting, we could create something that sounds like more of an old-timey warped vocal.
And when you're back, said I leave. I hear you begging me to stay.
So it just has a little bit of pitch fluctuation. And finally, what's really cool is we have vibrato as well. You have to start by increasing the amount of sense, the space between two notes, and then increase or decrease that vibrato by hertz. So we get something like this.
And when you're back, said I leave. I hear you begging me to stay.
And of course, we have that fade in as well. If you don't want that vibrato to take effect at the start of, a legato note, you could have it fade in or be something that you automate. Moving away from the auto-tune, we also get a new drum sampler, which I'm really enjoying. Here's a sample played through the sampler. You can see that you can choose the start position here, and it's got a nice visual for that, and length is going to be the end position as well. We also have gain here and a nice visual for that. We have our attack, but no visual for that, but it's pretty self-explanatory how that's going to work. Hold and decay. So if we were to take hold all the way down and decay down a little bit, you could make some nice little plucks here. The thing that I'm really enjoying about this sampler is its built-in effects. Stretch is by far my favorite. Increasing the factor means it's going to set the amount of time stretching going on. And changing the grain changes the amount of time played between each kind of sample or grain size. We've also got things like loop, which is self-explanatory. We've got pitch envelope. We've got punch, which is kind of a transient thing. We get FM, a ring mod, a sub oscillator, which is super cool. We can add noise to this. We of course get a filter, and we have some options to modulate here as well and add a second effect. We've got a complete overhaul for the limiter and the saturator. I'm really enjoying the limiter. A lot of people don't use the limiter and gravitate towards the color limiter because it feels like Ableton's standard limiter just doesn't bite as quickly as the color limiter does. I think those days are over now. I'm really enjoying this limiter here. Notice with that sample, unless you're wearing headphones, we can't really hear the reverb in that sample. Let's bring the ceiling height all the way down. Maybe turn on soft clip. We're going to keep the look ahead at 1.5, but we're going to start to increase that input gain. I'll definitely be using this. Start to pull that release down, you're going to hear more distortion. Super nice limiter. We get this lovely saturator as well. I'm going to pull this level down just so I can talk over the top of it. We get this lovely visual, the things that we can imagine we'd get in a saturator like drive. We've got this color amount here, which is essentially like our bass. It goes in a positive and negative value. So we're going to add more treble or more bass to that. And of course, we can generate different curves here, even have the wave shaper. When we have the wave shaper here, we have to open up this little unfold device parameter, and then we can go about creating our own wave shapes. And we get this like kind of EQ thing here. So if we wanted to create maybe a little bit of a peak in a certain frequency, super tasteful, exciting stuff. Now coming to the last two items, Ableton now has auto tagging. Any samples in your entire system library that is under 1 minute will be filtered into the auto tag section, so you can find your samples on your system way more quickly. Lastly, inside our MIDI editor, we now have this search tool as well. That means that we can now more easily make edits to chants and velocity settings up here on the left, but also we can make music theory a little bit easier on ourselves by selecting pitch 2. We've currently got our global scale set to C major, so we can choose the notes from C major. If we turn that off, we'll just have to select those notes once again. So I'm super gassed at the changes from Ableton. It's wonderful to see that they're actually listening to us users and taking that feedback on board, and we're seeing quick free changes to 12.0 to 12.1. Like I said, this is part of the beta program, but I think that the changes will roll out soon in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that in the bottom left of your DAW. I'm going to be back later this week with our normal content. Let me know what you want to see in future videos. And as always, turn those notifications on so you don't miss anything.